Hey, welcome to Optimize Your Body with Martin Silva, where we talk raw, uncut facts to truly help you optimize your body.
Hello, Andrew Bond. Mate, what are you doing up at this time? 11 p.m.
Man, I'm in anticipation of recording a podcast because you were either going to get me speaking now or get up at 4:30 in the morning. I couldn't handle that, mate, so I had to get it done now. I just couldn't sleep. I was anxious, so I was ready to get it done.
You were anxious about getting grilled by me on the podcast again, were you, mate?
Yeah, mate. I was anxious about doing all the talking and you just sitting back and listening. So
I know. It's more like an interrogation, mate, than a podcast nowadays. Just trying to, rinse you, mate. Just trying to get all this information out of you.
That's it.
But yeah, mate, we're going to talk about fasting. Obviously, we've done that first episode, didn't we? Back in the day when we first started it. Yeah, man. So intermittent fasting.
Well, how are you doing with that? Because are you using that as often as you used to, or have you got different views on it now?
What you mean in terms of that episode?
No, I'm just in terms of fasting itself. Like, obviously, you were big advocates of it back in the day.
Yeah.
Has that changed for you? Or I know you mentioned it recently. You've been doing maybe 16-8 or you're skipping breakfast each day, right?
Yeah, that's right, mate. Yeah, so for me, it's just like a lifestyle kind of thing. So I'm just doing what I've always done, really. And you know what it's like, mate? It just molds in better for us because obviously we start work at like 5, 6 in the morning. We've got a few clients. Yeah. And I think we're just connected with the fact that, you feel better generally when you're not eating, right? Like, for the most part. Do you agree with that? Or?
Yeah, I totally agree. I was having a chat with my client about it yesterday, actually. She was saying, you intermittent fast. And I was like, yes and no. I do, but I don't necessarily call it that. I just kind of skip breakfast because it fits in with my lifestyle, right? Because I'm getting up at, yesterday morning, I was up at, say, probably 4:45, 5 o'clock. I don't really feel like eating at that time. I got to get out to the train. I got to be with someone by 6:15, and my journey takes 30 minutes. So for me, it is, like you said, it's part of my lifestyle, part of my routine now. So I don't really think about it anymore. I'm not necessarily advocating that I am a massive intermittent faster, but yeah, I generally do skip breakfast when I haven't got time for it in the morning. So
exactly, that's the same as me. So we don't even think about it anymore. It's just second nature, right? We're just in tune with the fact that, okay, I'm not I tried it. I tell you what, and I tried it because obviously I'm trying to build muscle, right? Because I'm thinking of doing that show in October, trying to do a little bulk, right? So I got up my usual time, 4:15 in the morning. Thought, right, I'm going to get a meal in me before having 3 clients. So I had 3 clients, 5 a.m. till 8 a.m. Ate steak, eggs, avocado, spinach. Worked out about 800 calories. Mate, I felt like crap. I was with my client, and I was just my energy. Obviously, when you're eating, just so the listeners know, your body has to work really hard, and obviously it depends what you eat as well. But generally, it's a pretty big process, the digestion process. So, it kind of makes sense in a way, right? That you feel a bit better on an empty stomach for the most part.
Yeah, I do definitely, man. For the most part, maybe Sundays is probably the only day that I eat in the morning because I have more time. But generally, that's probably someone who shouldn't fast. Really, someone who does have, like you said, you have trouble breaking food down. If you're eating big meals and you have digestive issues, then and you're feeling sluggish, your stomach's hurting and you're bloated after eating all that food, then generally you'd be in the bracket of someone who probably shouldn't follow the intermittent fasting rule.
Absolutely. And I think it can be overdone as well. So I think to a certain extent, I kind of do it a little bit too much. I think just like anything we ever talk about, all of these things can be used as great tools, but they can also be abused. So I think there's going to be some good to come out of if you're intermittent fasting every single day, like I do most days. I'm the same as Andrew. I'll tend to have a breakfast normally on a Saturday and Sunday. And I think to do that is going to be good in some way because the body, you would think, just like anything, it would adapt not in the best way if you're doing something all the time. You're going to get less benefits because it's you throw a curveball, you know what I mean? Like with your training, for example. Let's use training as an example. You'll do something, Andrew and I will do a certain type of training for 3 to 6 weeks, and then we'll switch over to a different kind of stimulus. It's the same thing with anything, really, with fasting, even like calorie tracking, Drew, which I'll come to in a bit. But what I wanted to say, mate, was I know your client asked you the other day, and most of the time, people are connecting this intermittent fasting to looking better or fat loss, right?
Yeah, man, that's one of the massive issues that you get in the fitness industry. Is pushing fasting, as a weight loss tool. But like anything in the fitness industry, as we've both alluded to in the past, that we have had eating disorders from from our control that we've had with certain foods, I feel that like intermittent fasting is another tool that you use that can promote
starvation.
Disorders, starvation, eating disorders. If we're only looking to it for a fat loss tool, right? And it shouldn't be promoted in that way. Again, with the fitness industry, they find that little bit of information, they run with it massively. And the way it hasn't been pushed more is because it can't be packaged as a supplement, basically.
Absolutely. Let's look at where we were a few years back, yeah? So, we used to, as we've explained to the listeners several times, binge eating disorder. We used to eat not the best. Our relationship with food wasn't the best. We would have binges, restrict our calories and whatnot. So obviously, we're all on our own journey, and we learned from those experiences. But we would use fasting really primarily when we'd overeaten, right? So we would like smash loads of calories, eat all the wrong kinds of foods, and then be like, right, I'm going to fast now, and then like put the body under more stress, which it's a stress which the body can respond from certain stresses in a way which is beneficial, right? So that's why fasting can be used as a tool which is going to benefit you. But Andrew and I used to use it in an unhealthy way as well.
Yeah.
Remember, we used to, like, for example, when I came out to see you about 3-4 years ago in New York, after my show, we were just like, we were all right then. We were actually getting better at that point, but we still had some massive blowouts, right? Remember that? On Thanksgiving?
Before we had a week of binging, fasting every day, really.
That's true.
It did mitigate the damage a little bit, but again, it's still building an unhealthy relationship with food, right? It's showing that you can overconsume junk food and then fast your way out of the next day, and that's not really showing you what fasting should be used for all the health benefits and health reasons.
Absolutely. And I think most people, I'm not sure, not necessarily people listening to this is different levels, but let's just say even most people listening to this podcast should probably be prioritizing other things before they consider fasting, right?
Yeah.
Because to get to that level where, like we just talked about at the beginning of this podcast, where you're, eating intuitively and doing these things intuitively. So Andrew and I are now connected with the fact that, it's okay to just go without food. It's okay. Muscle's not going to fall off me. And in fact, I feel better when I don't eat. I function better. My brain functions better. My digestion sometimes is better. I have more clarity mentally. I just generally function better. So, I think...
I agree with that.
I agree
with what you said.
Thanks for chipping in there, man. I forgot what I was saying, so I appreciate that.
I chipped in because I can see you were stumbling.
Spot on, bro.
Help me out as well in the same way.
I will, mate.
But like you just said, then you want to really put in those other structures first and those building blocks first before you even look at fasting as any sort of tool. So is your metabolism firing correctly? As you said earlier about tracking your calories, do you have an awareness of calories? Have you got a good amount of protein and fiber in your diet? Are you increasing your water intake daily? Is your training program efficient? Are you getting your steps in? Are you moving well? These are all tools that you should be implementing before you even think about, right, I'm going to use fasting as a tool. Like fasting should be way, way down the line in your list of priorities when it comes to health and fitness.
Absolutely. And you were just saying, you want to see if your metabolism is firing properly first. I like that. And I don't know why, when you said that, I do know why. I thought about, tracking your food intake. And like we've mentioned this as a tool as well, just to get an idea of the amount of calories. It doesn't have to be using an app. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Although the apps such as MyFitnessPal are so easy to use. You can just make a note of what you're eating and try and, use some sort of tool to figure out roughly how many calories you're having. And that's going to be, the best measure to figure out whether your metabolism is healthy or not is to work out, roughly how many calories your body needs to maintain its weight. So, we're going a bit off here, but for example, like certain people I train, I will get them to track their food intake. And, like some, for example, I used someone as an example a while back. It was a girl who was like 90 kilos. She was, quite heavy. She got quite a lot of muscle mass. She'd been lifting weights for a while, but I figured out her maintenance calories were like 1,300 calories. So we know, both of us know that is not a healthy metabolism. So then I had to give her more calories to build the metabolism up, and that was the first point of call. So when it comes to fasting, intermittent fasting has many, many benefits, but it's something you should definitely use a bit further down the line. And on that note, Drew, do you think? Go on. Were you going to say something? Yeah.
Yeah. No. I'll drop on that as well.
On,
that point. just made there. Like just look at the scenario. Let's make a scenario up now. Okay, just say 90% of people out there, right? As you just said, then she was on 1,300 calories. Okay, so 90% of people out there, they are under eating. First up, yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
they are not getting enough sleep.
Or they're overeating, right? So they have undereating or overeating most of the time, yeah.
I'm just going to lead on to a point in a sec. Like, so they're undernourished, and because they think then fasting is a tool for fat loss, yeah, in exclamation marks. They then add fasting to that recipe for disaster, which is another stress in the body, which is only going to lead to poor metabolism in the future, basically. So if you're already under eating, you're already over exercising, you add fasting on top of that, which is another stress to the body, then it's going to have negative implications on your metabolism in the future. So really think about it, because you hear the new it word from like a celebrity or people in the fitness industry on Instagram who have a huge following, the intermittent fast. Just think about your current situation. If you're already going through these issues such as undereating, over-exercising, lack of sleep, loads of stress, etc., then this is not for you.
Absolutely, and I like what you said there, because adding an extra stress to the body, it's the last thing you really want to do is if you're in a position where, like Andrew was saying then, you're under-eating already, you're not getting enough sleep or whatever. Even if you're underfeeding the body, let's just use that as an example. It makes
as a girl was on 1,300 calories.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Well, that's what I worked out. Yeah, exactly. She's underfeeding, so she wasn't eating much. It worked out, her maintenance calories were 1,300. So, if she wanted to then lose body fat, what am I going to do? Put her on like 1,100 calories? I mean, that's no way to live. So it's a case then of building that metabolism up, from the ground up, I guess, and getting, just for the listeners, getting her to focus on strength training, building muscle, reducing her stress levels. And as we've mentioned many a times, if you build muscle, that's going to then fire your metabolism up. So that's, just to relate to what we were talking about, that's the best way to really build your metabolism, one of the best ways to build muscle. But yeah, it's an added stress, and it makes from an evolutionary standpoint, it makes complete and utter sense if you're already under stress, you're not giving your body much food, you then decide to cut food off even further, so then you'll go longer without food, and that then is going to put your body straight into that fight or flight survival mode, and you're going to do more harm than good. And do you know what? That's how you really end up, causing permanent damage to your metabolism. So just be mindful of that. It can be very detrimental if you're not in a place where you're eating whole foods and you're looking after yourself for the most part, right, Drew?
Yeah, man. And what you said then from can't even say the word, is a big word for me, mate.
Don't worry, mate. It's 10 past 11 p.m. I'll let you off, man.
Let me try that. Let me try again. Evolutionary. There you go.
Good work, mate. Good work.
I actually was chatting to someone in the gym, my fitness man, the other day, and he brought this point up, which I want to say now is that during like caveman times, obviously there would be periods where you would fast, okay, especially for women. They would then obviously go without food for a long time. They would get super lean and are very hungry at the same time, and they wouldn't be able then to create babies, okay? So, like I said, from an evolutionary standpoint there, it would be much harder to get pregnant. So if you are a female who is looking to get pregnant, fasting probably isn't for you. As if you are going through stages trying to get super lean, if you look at athletes and who have super low body fat percentages, it is more difficult for them to get fertile and to have babies. So from an evolutionary standpoint, looking back to those days, if you were fasted, if you were lean, if you were going hungry, then it would be more difficult to have your cycle and get pregnant as well,
Definitely, and there is definitely, I can totally identify.
Not sure if but that's what I was trying to allude to there.
Yeah, no, that's good. That was a very good point, and I can identify that with that totally, because experiences I've had with clients who I have got them introduced fasting to them. And by the way, like we'll come to this as well, but people always want to go from 0 to 100 really fast, right? So like Andrew was saying, you'll see it online. You'll see intermittent fasting. Okay, so what's the sweet spot? 16 hours most people are fasting for. How about you don't start with 16 hours? If this is new to you and you're used to getting up, for example, and eating breakfast, then maybe you just want to might delay your breakfast for a few hours. So start off with like a 12-hour fast. And there's even been studies to show that going 12 hours without food can be good for the body. You're still giving your body a chance to do the good stuff, just to simplify it. And that's another thing you need to remember, folks, is like for the most of the time, all the good stuff in your body is happening when you're not eating, right? But yeah, I was going to say then about females. Now, I've had some cases with females fasting, and they haven't responded very well. Although I've got them to a good point, got them tracking their calories, controlling their calories, strength training, building muscle or whatever. Then I've introduced fasting, and they just haven't felt good. You know what I mean? I generally find guys seem to respond a lot better. And as you were saying, when it comes to evolution and reproducing, it kind of makes sense in a way. There's definitely something going on there with the female kind of hormonal system, which, just for the ladies listening, the ratios are not as good from what I've seen. And
yeah, it's something to do with amino acid profile, I believe. Not getting enough. It's sometimes a struggle for females to get enough protein in, I believe. Eating normally, and then when they fast, then they're limiting their protein intake again. I believe it's something to do with amino acid profile and like estrogen receptors and producing growth hormone, which is a response for allowing the uterus wall. Sorry, I'm trying to think of this now.
You're on fire. Keep going.
To thicken and begin that reproductive cycle. And you might like, generally when you work with women and it comes to intermittent fasting, they'll get a response from it which may be negative. Like, I feel that they may get like thinning hair or hair loss or issues with their nails. So if you are a woman listening to this now and you're trying intermittent fasting, or you've been doing it for a while and you're getting some of these issues, then I would stop. I'd recommend you stop now. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. Martin's not a doctor, but we would recommend you go and see a consultant or a doctor who knows a little bit more about this than us.
Definitely. And let's just talk. We talked about this in the last episode, but some of the listeners are probably still thinking, why is this beneficial? Let's just talk real quick. Like growth hormone, Andrew mentioned then. So when you're not going without food, generally, your body's producing much more growth hormone. When you sleep, for example, the body secretes the highest amount of growth hormone. When you fall into that deep REM sleep, that's when your body's really stimulating growth hormone, and growth hormone reproduces and regenerates every single cell in your body. It's a fat burning hormone, right? So this is partly why it's been linked to fat burning. But again, people need to focus on how many calories they're eating, right? So if you're looking to lose body fat and then you're going to use just purely intermittent fasting, one other good thing it can do for someone who's at a good level with eating is it gives you a smaller window to eat your food. So I find that has benefited some people just for that one reason alone. When they skip breakfast, they're then only going to eat maybe twice, and they can have bigger meals, which is why I like to refer to it as intermittent feasting, right? And they have then a smaller window to eat their food in, so they don't have any, like if you're getting up and you're having breakfast straight away, then generally, your appetite's going to be stimulated as well, but also, you've got more time to contend with then. If your goal is to get leaner and you're trying to eat X amount of calories, then it's just a little bit more of a battle. But also insulin as well. Obviously, you don't produce insulin when you're fasting. I won't go too much into that because it's kind of splitting hairs really. But also is the immune system benefits, which I think plays a massive part into energizing your body and whatnot, because they've even proven with a shorter fast now, which last time we had this podcast, I was just aware that longer fasts, which are really extreme, between like 24 hours and 72 hours, are the ones which generally repair your immune system, and the immune system wipes out dead immune cells and replaces them with new ones, so it regenerates that immune system. But there's even been some studies to prove that just doing intermittent fasting and going 12 to 18 hours without food can have similar effects. So
autophagy. Cell autophagy for the big words today.
That's the one. Yeah.
That's it. You may even get weight loss as a byproduct of fasting, but that shouldn't be the main reason why you are fasting, right? So that shouldn't be the main focus there. And what you were saying earlier about restricting your feeding as well, like if you are one of these people who finds that you overeat at night, then it could work for you, because as you alluded to just now when you said that you call it intermittent feasting, right? So you're going to have bigger meals. So if you have the bigger meal in the evening, you're less likely to overconsume calories on that, because it's going to fill you up.
Exactly.
So it's going to be more difficult to overconsume at that time.
Absolutely. And this is really good timing for this podcast, because I'm now, how far into a fast am I? What's the time now? 3:15. So this is rare, right? But I am 18. I'm probably about 19 hours into a fast now, 19, 20 hours into a fast. This is very rare. Normally I'll go about 16 hours. So generally I'll break my fast, let's just say, at about any time between about 9 and 12 p.m. So normally I'm going within 24 hours, I'm going there in about 16 hours. Today, as I said, I'm about 20 hours into a fast because last night I ate a poke bowl, which you might have seen on my Instagram. But then I had a second one, which I didn't put on there. Not because I didn't want people to see. I just didn't, honestly. I'm not hiding nothing from you guys. But I had a second poke bowl, and I had, like, chicken teriyaki in there. And they must have fried it in vegetable. I wasn't thinking. Normally, I just have the raw fish. And they must have fried it in vegetable oil or whatever, and the teriyaki sauce. And then I had one of their banoffee pies as well, which are made with, like, natural...
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. Natural with the, this, whatever that is. What's that thing called again?
Stevia.
Now, what's this thing? Do you know when people do this? Like...
Yeah, I said that.
Exclamation mark or speech.
I said it wrong earlier. Exclamation marks is not that.
It's like speech marks or whatever it is. I'm doing that thing on my fingers, right? Whatever that is. They don't know what the hell we're talking about here. Anyway, I had the banoffee pie as well, which is like made with natural ingredients. But anyway, I think it was the chicken teriyaki or something. My stomach, what's that, mate? Justifying it. Exactly. Natural ingredients. Make myself feel better. Still heaps of sugar. Yeah, that's the one. But anyway, man, I had that, and today my stomach was off, my energy was off, didn't feel good, but I would have fasted anyway in the morning. But then I trained, so I trained about an hour or so ago, and I still haven't eaten, and I still don't feel like eating. So, and people are probably, and I don't know. Yeah, go on.
Go on, you carry on, I'll tell you.
I was just going to say real quick about building muscle. So obviously then, just for the guys listening, we do get a lot of male listeners. So, I've just trained now, and I'm 20 hours into a fast. They're probably thinking, you're going to lose muscle, or are you going to lose muscle? Is it optimal for muscle growth? Now, the bottom line is, it doesn't really make that much difference. As long as I eat now, generally 2 to 4 hours after training, as long as I get adequate protein in, which is a little bit harder now, right? Because I'm planning on today, which I rarely do this. I think Andrew does this more often, but I'm going to have one big meal. That's the plan, to have one huge meal today. So it's just an example, like, I'm not worried about losing muscle. I haven't eaten for 20 hours. I've just done a monster session in the gym, and here I am. So
I don't mind, man. I think like from that perspective, you're teaching yourself that you don't need food, right? We really don't know what real hunger is like living in the Western society.
Definitely.
Plus, if you are fasting or you're unable to get adequate protein in right now, if you're having a session tomorrow or the next day, when you do reintroduce a lot of protein, then I'm sure you're going to see some strength gains from that anyway. So
yeah,
it can really be beneficial for you, man.
So I've got a question for you then. So say for the day I didn't hit enough protein. I mean, I'm not gonna lose muscle, am I, Drew?
No,
exactly. It's going to take really a few days in a row. Yeah, it would take me some consecutive days in a row, and that's what it is. Like we've always said, just average it over the space of a week. If you've had a few days in a row where you haven't hit, you've gone over on your calories, then guess what? Just cut back for a day or two. If you haven't had enough protein for a few days in a row, guess what? Bump your protein up. It's pretty straightforward, really, isn't it?
It's better for you anyway when you do it like that, rather than being too caught up on the statistics and the numbers. When you're on MyFitnessPal and you have to hit that number, that's going to build up like a negative relationship with food. Okay, so doing different calories each day, undulating your calories daily, and bringing in little tricks like this is going to make you become more aware of how your body works, basically, right? What you were saying earlier about men losing muscle, not likely, but too much fasting in men has been known to lower testosterone levels and increase cortisol levels. So the two issues that you have with that. Obviously, cortisol is needed to give you energy when you wake up. Mm-hmm. I'm sure spiking it too often is going to have negative implications for your body, I'm sure. So
yeah, that's true. That makes sense. So that's why I was saying at the beginning, there would be some detrimental effects to doing it long term, right? Which is something I'm aware of, especially over the last month, right, where I've been trying to build muscle. I'm trying to get in a minimum of 4,000 calories on average a day, and I pretty much did hit it. And I just think personally, like for the average person, if there's a guy listening to this who's looking to build muscle and that's your number one focus, intermittent fasting is probably not optimal. You probably want to spread your meals out a bit more, because that's something I've struggled with, Yeah, mate, I've really found it hard. And then I've got in my mind as well, Drew, is like eating too close before. Sometimes I wish I wasn't as aware, you know what I mean? So like eating too close to bed. Obviously, it's okay to do that a few times a week, but generally I don't want to do that every night. So like I was trying to condense everything into. So anyway, so what I've been doing is just like having like a few times a week, I'll have breakfast a bit earlier, you know what I mean, just to get that extra meal in and get those calories in, really. So What is, and I was going to ask you, is there anything you want to say on that note? Anything you want to say regarding what I just said?
No, that's fine. I agree with that. I agree with that point. Like, if you are, obviously you're looking to build muscle, like, you may want to have more meals per day.
Yeah.
It's not going to speed your metabolism up, as people said before, but as you just said there with that point, you know, it's difficult to get if you're increasing your protein intake, especially as you're going into a show this year. And it's going to be difficult to have like a big amount of protein in each meal because it's so satiated and it's going to fill you up. So you're going to feel horrible eating that big meal again. And that comes back to what we said earlier about like being bloated and your digestion issues. Exactly. So just separate that up a little bit. I would, and maybe have 3 to 4 meals a day.
Exactly.
You find that a little easier.
That's what I've heard mixed reviews as well about you know, the protein, like, because let's just talk about this real quick about getting your protein in, right? So say for example I was to eat 2 meals a day, that would require me to get at least 70 grams of protein per meal, right? So I need about 140 grams roughly a day. So I had a little debate with someone the other day, actually, big dude, and he was saying, you know, no, ideally you want to be having protein every couple of hours. And I was like, well, there's not really any studies to back that up, really. I can understand that actually if you drip feed it, it might have some benefits if you're having smaller amounts because your body may be able to absorb and assimilate it a bit better. But then on the flip side, like I said, there's no studies. And as Andrew said then, I think as long as your digestion's okay, then I don't think there's any reason to be having, you know, I've proven this anyway. I've proven that eating 2 or 3 times a day, big meals, I haven't lost muscle. Big amounts of protein in each meal, totally fine. What's your thoughts on that, Drew? Like, because there's a lot of like the zealots out there saying, you know,
I agree, man. You're probably splitting hairs.
Yes, that's what I thought.
I'd say you're splitting hairs with them. I think like it's again, as with a lot of things in fitness, everyone's individual and it's very person dependent. Like if you feel you feel the need to have protein every 2 to 3 hours, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
And that works well with your body. Why not? If you feel like you can put it into 2 meals a day and you're not having those digestive issues and you know you're enjoying your food and you're not forcing it, then why not go for that?
Exactly, and that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about, folks. And
just again, listen to your body.
Yeah, that's it. Listen, that's exactly what I was going to say. Listen to your body, folks. So, like, if someone works for me, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Like, that's why it is nothing specific with what we tell people. It's just advice based on our experience and experience with clients. We're trying to help the masses. So, if something, like, for example, if you want to go keto, like a lot of people are doing, and you want to eat, like, virtually no carbohydrates and you feel like shit, which chances are you probably will, to be honest, then don't continue doing it, you know. And if you're doing something which makes you feel not ideal, then stop doing it. It's really that simple, right, Drew? Yeah, and if it's something you feel that is too difficult to do for a month, let alone a year or 10 years, then why are you doing it to yourself? It's not a magical answer for fat loss. Like, you need to just be controlling what you're eating and the consuming calories a little bit, you know, be in a deficit. Plus have obviously a balanced diet that we always preach, but people are putting things out there that like fasting is the best for fat loss or keto diet is the best for fat loss. Well, really, no, it's not. You just need to be aware. And if you are eating like a keto diet or you're doing intermittent fasting and you feel you can do this for a long time, then hey, who are we to tell you any different? As long as your health is on the way up and you're feeling good about yourself, then go for it. But there are no magical answers, I'm afraid, other than strength training, moving more, exactly.
You know, being in a calorie deficit, body fat reduction, calorie surplus to build muscle, etc. So
spot on. So just to wrap this up,
go on.
Couple
of things. Yeah. So a couple of people who shouldn't probably intermittent fast is if you are a very social person, so you like to go out eating and drinking with friends, or with work you have to entertain clients, and you're doing that throughout the day. Then it's not going to be ideal for you to sit down with a client, not eat food, and they're like, why aren't you eating food? And you're like, oh, I'm intermittent fasting. Then really in that situation, or you're skipping meals when you're sitting down with family and friends, probably not ideal. Plus what we said earlier, that we've had eating disorders in the past. So if you are now prone to binge eating and you're restricting your food throughout the day, then come to the evening and you're binging on thousands of calories that you don't need, then the likelihood of you putting on that weight is pretty high. So if you are prone to binge eating or eating disorders already, intermittent fasting is probably not for you. Simple.
Great stuff. And that's basically, I had a guy on Instagram he's called Aloha Bob Aloha. Okay, so I'll do it in like a Hawaiian swang. Aloha Bob Aloha. That's his That's his Instagram name. And basically, mate, we just answered most of his. Obviously, we had the one he wanted to know.
He's not going to appreciate that too much, am I?
He will, mate. I've met him before. Actually, he's from Australia, so I think it'll be cool. He might change his username now, though, but who cares?
He's got a big fan.
Exactly, but no, he wanted us to answer something regarding thyroid, which we're not going to really get into because we don't really know enough about it really, but we've pretty much answered most of his thing because he wanted to know about fasting benefits versus stresses primarily, and he says his money is shifting to only 12 to 14 hour fasts, and again it's an individual thing, right? So I think like I said, it's better to build it up, and start on, let's say, 12-hour fast. So you finish eating at 8 p.m. You have your breakfast at 8 a.m. Easy. A lot of people tend to do that anyway, a lot of people, without realizing. So if you're already doing that and you want to, I want to push to 14, 16, go ahead. Like I said earlier, delay your breakfast for a couple of hours or maybe break your fast at midday and see how you feel. Pay attention to how you feel. That's the most important thing. Don't just do it and then, just continue it and start grinding it out every day because someone else is doing it. So... yeah, man. So I was going to ask you, Drew, did you have anything else you wanted to say, mate, to wrap it up? No?
Yeah, just like if you fast consistent all the time, then it might not be good for your hormone profile and it might add another stress to your body, right? Plus your body will adapt to it over time. So just use it as a tool and like it says, use it intermittently. Don't use it all the time.
Exactly.
Feed your body when it needs it. Fast when you need to. Simple.
Exactly. All right, how about we... say, I was going to say at the end, just our top kind of maybe 3 benefits that we personally have experienced with intermittent fasting, right? Because we've talked about all the negatives, we've covered most of the benefits really, but I guess for me, I'll just say it in one sentence, right? I can't be bothered thinking of 3 things, right? So in one sentence, not I can't be bothered, folks. I do want to bother with you, but it's going to take me a while, right? Anyways, so for me, I would say intermittent fasting is great for your energy levels generally, not for everyone, but for me personally, it's worked wonders for my energy in the mornings because, like I said, I'll skip breakfast. I'm with clients, and even when I'm not with clients, I'm just out of the habit of having breakfast now, and I'm now connected to the fact that when I do eat food, because I have quite big meals as well, generally I'll feel a bit tired, especially if I just sit around. That's another thing, like we've mentioned before. When you do eat, if you just go for a little 5 to 15 minute walk after eating, it works wonders for digestion. It's a big process, so when you eat, it's going to use up a lot of energy for your body to digest that. And also, I find that it's taught me so much about what real hunger is. Now, don't get me wrong, I've learned this the hard way from doing competitions, doing bodybuilding competitions. You do feel hunger when you're doing those things. And I'm used to going to bed hungry leading up to shows and all that kind of stuff. But actually dragging out fasts and not eating for prolonged periods for me has taught me that actually I don't feel hunger when I do that because we don't really know what hunger is because none of us, thankfully, listening to this podcast, have had to really go for longer than a few days without food. So generally it's taught me that actually what I thought was hunger was mainly just habit.
Yeah, that's one point that I would reiterate as well. That has taught me that I don't eat food all the time, Mark. And just, I guess, increased clarity and increased mood, basically. So yeah, 3 positives for me there. And again, I use it when I need it now. Like I don't necessarily call it intermittent fasting, but I do find that in the mornings, like I said earlier, that I take time away from food because I don't have time and I'm out there rushing, and I do probably. I had 3 or 4 clients in a row this morning, and then after that, I ate. So, I'm skipping a certain part of time in the morning. So I guess I am fasting, and every now and again I'll throw in a large fast when needed.
What was the longest one you've done? You've done like 68 hours, didn't you, before?
Yes. Well, I think I may have 68 to 72 hours. I've done that a couple of times. So.
Yeah. Okay, I've never gone longer than I don't think 28. I think is my maximum. But I was just going to say then, just quickly, I have this question a lot, and do you eat before training, or do you train in a fasted state?
Usually in a fasted state, Mark. Yeah.
Okay, and what time would you train normally? Let's just give it an example of today or yesterday.
Ideally, I would train probably around 11.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll eat afterwards then.
Okay, sweet. All right, that covers everything then. Nice one for chiming in, Drew. It's past your bedtime, so I appreciate it, pal.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Cheers, sir.